And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I think that we have a wonderful presentation I'm really looking forward to personally today on living with neuropathy and chronic pain. And firstly, would like to thank our 2021 presentation sponsor, Service Credit Union, for helping to provide these presentations today. And before we get started here, I would also like to make an acknowledgement here that as we gather here today, it's vital we also remember the peoples who've gathered here for millennia. This is the Treaty 7 land of the Indigenous peoples of southern Alberta, the Blackfoot Nations of Siksika, Piikani, Keone, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda Nations of Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley, and the historic home of the Northwest Métis and Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. It is with the goal of reconciliation that we acknowledge the land on which we gather, and we thank the elders of these nations for their timeless contributions to this land. And today's presentation, as I said, is quite personal to me. My father had peripheral neuropathy, and I see many older adults who are suffering with the effects of various neuropathy. Today, we're pleased to have Linda Pettiot and Sylvia Donnelly joining us from the Calgary Neuropathy Association. They'll help us to learn the causes, effects, and self-management tips to help with the associated symptoms, including living with chronic pain. Linda joined the Calgary Neuropathy Association in December 2015 after hearing one of their speakers. She was so happy to hear that there were things she was able to do for her neuropathy that she joined CNA that day to learn more. Since that day, she's been researching and trying different options for neuropathy and pain relief. Linda is a semi-retired independent information technology business analyst who's taken on the vice president role as well as management of CNA website and other duties as assigned, which means just about anything. She has hereditary peripheral neuropathy, also called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, a condition under the muscular dystrophy umbrella that causes systemic nerve damage leading to muscular atrophy. Sylvia Donnelly is the president of the Calgary Neuropathy Association and sits on the board of the Chronic Pain Support and Connections nonprofit. Sharing her knowledge through the CNA Education and Support Group has been a passion and focus for her, along with giving presentations to healthcare professionals and the Calgary community. She believes in promoting awareness and self-management for those with neuropathy and chronic pain, their family, friends, co-workers, and healthcare providers. Following her own personal experience with numerous accidents and injuries involving nerve damage, Sylvia continued her education, earning a Bachelor of Science and a master's degree in nursing. She began volunteering facilitating workshops with the AHS Living Well program. She obtained her master trainer certificate through Stanford University to teach others to become facilitators. She's also created and conducted the meditation and creative writing retreats through the UBC Okanagan campus. Sylvia is in her 10th year volunteering to run the Calgary Neuropathy Association. You ladies are very busy.
Yes, we are.
And ladies, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. What exactly is neuropathy and how does one know if they have it?
Well, to start with, I just want to thank you, Colleen, for your introduction and for inviting Linda and I to present. I'd also like to thank everybody that is joining us today for being present with us. Little disclaimer we have to get out of the way. While great care has been taken in organizing and presenting the material, please note that it is provided for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. The statements have not been evaluated by Health Canada. The products mentioned are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or illness.
Just so I'm going to start to share my screen now so that we can actually see what we're doing. And there's our little disclaimer slide. And here we go with the other slide.
Okay, so let's start by answering Colleen's first question. What exactly is neuropathy? Neuropathy is simply nerve damage. It sounds simple, but this nerve damage is a chronic disabling disorder that impacts multiple aspects of an individual's life with unpredictable pain, reduced mobility, and/or independence. So if you think of the nervous system, it consists of two parts. You have the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord. And then you have the peripheral nervous system, which involves all the nerves from the spinal cord to the rest of the body, to the skin, to the muscles, and to the internal organs. When these nerves are affected, this is referred to as peripheral neuropathy, and that is our focus, the peripheral neuropathies. There are over 100 causes of peripheral neuropathy, and no matter the cause, the treatment is relatively the same. We'll give an overview of what peripheral neuropathy is and the current medical care being provided in our healthcare system. Our primary focus then will be on self-management, what you can be doing for yourself to manage your symptoms 24/7. You'll notice too that we interchange peripheral neuropathy with just neuropathy, but bear with us on that one.
Okay. So like Sylvia said, there's over 100 different causes of neuropathy. This slide really just shows the most common 15. And when you're looking at things like diabetes, 50 to 60% of people who get diabetes get neuropathy. And that's what those percentages are on there. With neuropathy, there's chronic, which is the kind also that we deal with. So chronic really means lasting more than 3 months. So basically permanent. There's other more common kinds like carpal tunnel syndrome, for example, or a neuroma, where they can do something about it. Carpal tunnel, of course, they do surgery, but it's really the chronic ones that we're trying to deal with. So the nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, really has 3 different kinds of nerves. The first one being motor nerves, Sylvia said that already. And this list here that's shown is some of the symptoms that you'll feel or see in people when they have motor nerve damage or disease. And for me, for example, I have that chronic hereditary type of neuropathy. And so let me back up a second, sorry. The nerves really do tell the muscles, the motor, what to do. So I'm sitting here in this chair. If I want to get up and move to the back of the room, the brain tells my nerves, sends messages to the muscles, and I get up and I move sort of automatically. It happens. For me, the nerves are slowing down. Those messages aren't getting there as fast. And so that's when you start to get these kinds of symptoms happening. Sensory nerves. So if any of you out there have ever felt like a bug is crawling on you, but nothing's there, or you get goosebumps for no reason, or electrical shocks that just shoot through randomly, those are the sensory nerves being affected. And you can get different kinds of things. So this paresthesia is that numbness, tingling, burning, and the electrical shocks. Something called dysthesia is a little more rare, but it's when you get sensations that don't really match what's going on. So you put your hand in cold water and it feels like it's burning. Now, anesthesia, of course, you can guess, is when you don't feel anything at all. And you might be thinking that that's the kind of feelings that you want to have if you have sensory nerve neuropathy. But truth is, when you have anesthesia for your nerves, it really can cause a lot of injuries, and that's how people end up having, sores that go on for a really long time. And then finally, the autonomic nerves. So autonomic neuropathy and then autonomic nervous system really is that system that you don't have any control over, right? So we were talking your heartbeat, your kidneys, that kind of thing. And just like electrical appliances, all of those organs, including your skin, everything needs messages from the brain. The brain is the control center, and those messages go out So you can experience things like fainting and lightheadedness, low blood pressure, weird sweating symptoms. That kind of stuff comes with autonomic neuropathy. And the other thing I wanted to mention was you've probably heard of the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system. Sorry. And what those are is part of the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight that you've heard of, and the parasympathetic is the opposite, the rest and digest.
When it comes to diagnosing neuropathy, there really is no specific test to diagnose for neuropathy and its causes. This list that I have on this slide here, it just shows the different types of testing that is done. And basically it's to rule out other conditions. It's a very high rate. 30% of all people with neuropathy may never know the cause. And it leads us to treatment. And this is a list of treatments commonly prescribed by medical and integrative healthcare providers. And we'll be referring to these throughout the presentation. But keep in mind, the expected results are not to cure or to be symptom-free. There is no known cure, so the goal is to maintain or regain function and quality of life. We're going to start with the medical side of things with prescriptions. And the most common is getting the analgesics started. You'll notice number 58 up on the corner, right-hand corner there. That is in reference to our website where you can find more information under 100 plus things you can do for neuropathy. You'll find these numbers throughout the slides and they just correlate to that, that section of our website. So analgesics are painkillers. And there is no magic pill to take away all the pain. I attended the first ever neuropathy summit in Washington, D.C. With physicians, and only 30 to 40% pain relief is expected to come from prescription meds. All meds can cause side effects, so you need to balance that pain relief with what you consider acceptable for side effects. And if you notice at the very bottom, I have opioids on the list, but crossed out. For years, opioids had been marketed specifically for neuropathic pain based on how they worked differently with the brain. However, with the opioid crisis, new studies have emerged showing they don't work as well long-term as first thought. The Canadian opioid guidelines now state that opioids showed only small to moderate benefits for neuropathic pain. And doctors are looking at other medications and treatment for neuropathic pain. So anti-epileptics is another area of medication that is often prescribed for people living with neuropathy. These are typically, they are drugs to control seizures, but a secondary use is for treating neuropathies. A medical doctor was a guest speaker at our CNA meeting, and he explained, and it was with quite dismay, that Lyrica has become the #1 first-line treatment for neuropathic pain, and it was based on a 46-person study. And what I want to get out of that is that doctors do want to help us, but there is little known on how to treat neuropathy. And basically, it's the symptoms that are treated. And of course, if there is an underlying cause for your neuropathy that is known, well, then it's imperative to manage that underlying condition. The next category of medications are the antidepressants. And there's two categories, the tricyclics and the SNRIs. Each are having a different mechanism of their action, but both were initially to treat depression. However, again, being a secondary result has been researched, and they are known to be effective in the treatment of chronic pain, with the benefit of also being a mood stabilizers. They are first-line treatments for neuropathic pain as they interfere with the chemical process in your brain and your spinal cord, and that help cause you to feel the pain. They are also helpful for sleep, mood, as well as the chronic pain. Going to get into topicals. We had a wonderful pharmacist give a great talk on topicals, so we've included that in our slides now. And they are applied locally. So they're not ingested for a systemic effect. So there are fewer side effects. Topicals are available over the counter in milder doses. You can get prescription levels. And for stronger classes of medications that are regulated, you can get triple scripts in some of these medications. So for instance, the capsaicin, which is the pepper, red peppers and that. It's useful in decreasing the pain intensity at the site. It's also available over the counter, and it does not, it does need to be applied several times a day though, at least 4 times a day. The ketamine, on the other hand, requires a triplicate prescription, and it's often combined with other medications into a compound that needs to be made by a compounding pharmacy. It's helpful for conditions that have allodynia, which is it's pain that's produced that doesn't normally cause pain. So there are some types of neuropathy out there that even the wind blowing on your arm can cause pain. So ketamine is quite helpful in that area. Also, a tip, Linda just told me this the other day, and I thought this is worth putting in. So when you're applying something locally, you're going to the end of the nerve where the pain is. So on our website, there's a really good article talking about the dermatomes. And these are the nerve pathways from the spine to the end of the nerve. And if you can look at that dermatome chart and you know which nerves are leading from the spine to the area that's causing the pain, if you apply the topical to that area in the spine along that nerve, it will help to improve the pain relief. And like I say, for more information, you can go to the website. This one is under neuropathy articles. Topicals, it has the graphic, it's very well done. And medical cannabis, it is increasingly being more researched, and it supports the effectiveness for neuropathic pain. And everyone is unique, and the effectiveness is individual. There's 10% of the population that won't have the receptors naturally for THC, and they won't get a benefit from it. The one thing that's positive about this is that overdose is not lethal as it can be with opioid medications. Then you got to talk about the THC versus the CBD. So the THC is the psychoactive component, and it causes that high. There is also a synthetic form by prescription called nabilone. CBD does not produce the psychoactive effects, and it has relatively mild side effects while being quite effective for different types of pain and other symptoms. Medical cannabis can be smoked, it can be vaporized, there's drops, there's ointments, there's topicals, you can bake it and eat it. But we do caution that if you're choosing to smoke or vaporize, that there are known concerns with the lungs and that with those methods.
Okay, so let's talk about stuff now that isn't medications, right? Medications are really a very important part of treatment for neuropathy, but it's certainly not the only thing. What we advocate for, and I think Sylvia's mentioned it, is something called self-management. Sometimes you'll hear it called self-care or self-treatment. And what that really is building your own toolkit of things that make you feel better and give you relief, and keeping to use those things. I'm willing to bet that some of you already have some of these things in a virtual toolkit, if you like. If you drink coffee in the morning, you're getting caffeine to help you with the fatigue in the morning. If you exercise regularly, that's great. If you're drinking wine or eating chocolate to feel better, that's another thing in your toolkit. But I got to tell you, 3 out of those 4 things are not really helping your neuropathy. Caffeine is toxic to the nerves, so is alcohol. And of course, chocolate has caffeine in it. So you want to limit those kinds of things. But what you really want to do is experiment with a whole bunch of things one at a time so that you know if it has any effect for you or not. I tell people you're a test subject you're an experiment with a test subject of one. And as you go through these things, you put stuff into your toolkit, and if it doesn't work, you toss it out if it's really doesn't work at all or it's really bad, or you just set it aside to maybe try it again later. But you build your own kind of plan over time. But before we get into all of those different things that you can do, I want to talk about something called the symptom cycle, which really is a way of looking at neuropathy and neuropathic pain, but its full impact, if you like. Okay, we're talking here about the impact, like I said, that it has on our lives. So not just dealing with those symptoms, dealing with the impact that comes with it. Sorry. If you think about numbness and tingling, shooting pains, for example, or even fatigue or weakness, that could cause you to have difficulty working. And if you have difficulty working, that can have impacts on your self-esteem. You could end up with financial problems. You might be not sleeping so good at night. And all of those symptoms are not just something to look at by themselves. You have to look at the full impact in order to really manage your neuropathy. So integrative approaches. So, you know, the medications and stuff really are the Western medicine or the medicine piece of it. But the integrative approach, if you like complementary, you like wellness, whatever kind of words they call them now, integrative approaches. So looking at nutrition, Chinese medicine, there's the manipulative, there's all kinds of integrative approaches that can complement the Western stuff. So my first day at the CNA, it was mentioned earlier, I learned from a fellow named Dr. James Haxton that there's three things that your nerves need in order to sort of be their healthiest. And that's oxygen, good nutrition, and stimulation. And actually, I want to add a third when we're talking about the whole picture, the whole symptom cycle, and that is teaching your brain to tone down the messages of pain and the symptoms. It's called neuroplasticity, but you can actually change your brain. But really, all of these integrative approaches, they all come back to those four things. Their medicines, like Sylvia said, can be really, really helpful, but they still only take away 30 to 40% of the pain. Now, I know you've all probably heard the phrase, knowledge is power. Well, I want to tell you that I think that's crap. And actually, knowledge plus action equals power. Because if you have all the knowledge in the world, but you don't actually take any action to help yourself, you're not going to get any benefit from it. So remember that knowledge plus action equals power. It's a very powerful statement, no pun intended. Okay, Sylvia already mentioned underlying condition, top of mind, right? Nutrition. There is so much new research. They understand so much more now about how important nutrition is in the body, how it causes inflammation or can reduce inflammation. If you think about inflammation in your nerves, think about that inflammation putting pressure on your already sensitive nerves. And so really nutrition can make a huge difference. Functional neurology up here is actually a chiropractor who has special neurological training. And what he does, or she, is uses a collection of methods that improves the neurological function. And some of the stuff seems really hokey, but actually it really does work when you get in there and have him doing it to you or do the exercises. He also does, or she does, techniques to help promote nerve stimulation and oxygen intake. Because if you remember, oxygen, nutrition, and stimulation are the three things that really help the nerves the best. And it's the same with Chinese, traditional Chinese medicines. You're looking at acupuncture, you're looking at cupping, and the other techniques that they use. Those are all looking at stimulation, bringing the blood flow up, which brings in the nutrition and brings in the oxygen, right? Mind-body interventions, that's a whole big section on itself, and we're going to talk about that later. But the manipulative stuff, like, again, chiropractor, massage, physiotherapy, that's all about getting that blood flow going to the areas where there's damage and getting those important things of oxygen and nutrition to those spaces. Okay, biologically based. So there's lots of herbs and supplements out there, proteins, probiotics, prebiotics, all of that stuff. There's hundreds of them, honestly. So a person really has to, first of all, know what it is they're looking to do with a supplement or an herb or whatever, and then research the research, if you like. So one thing I want to mention about these, though, is supplements are different from herbs. Supplements are extra doses of things that our bodies need and use, and you're just adding to them because maybe we're deficient. Our North American diet's kind of sketchy sometimes that way. And then herbs are actually not something our body produces anyway, but they do have an effect on the body. And one really good example is melatonin and valerian. So melatonin helps you get to sleep, and it's a natural chemical that is produced in the body. Valerian is a root of a plant, and it does the same thing. I actually use both. Biofeedback is using those, the nervous system uses electrochemical communication, right, to move the messages up and down. And so those energy therapies actually are actual tools that use those messages. Sometimes they're hindered for whatever reason, and those tools will help unhinder them. If you've heard of a TENS machine, for example, though, that's really just using electricity to contract and release muscles. But a true biofeedback machine like a PhysioKey or Senzakey, those are generations beyond what a TENS machine does, and it actually works with the brain, making sure those communications and the electrochemical are going back and forth. And then the others, like the Reiki and the magnetic, those are, in my mind, a little harder to quantify, but I try to keep an open mind because you never know what's going to work. So self-management. Oh, no, sorry, supplements. Yeah, I'm not going to do a whole lot here because, like I said, there's hundreds of them. And what I said before, try to figure out what it is you want to do with a supplement, and then research the research to figure out if it's something that will help you.
Now we're getting a little further into the self-management. And again, it's all about those actions that you can take, the strategies, the tools that you can use for that self-care and to manage your symptoms 24/7. So there's a list of self-management tools and techniques on the next slide. And I just wanted to, if anybody has attended the Living Well program, they have a Better Choices, Better Health class that offers, it's a great course that offers a lot of brainstorming ideas for different strategies to use. You use a different tool for different concerns, different time of day, different locations, that kind of thing. And what we do recommend is that you don't ever throw something out. Oh, I tried that, it didn't work for me. Well, we really do suggest that you try something for at least a couple of weeks. And if it's truly not working, then just put it back in the box, because 6 months, a year from now, it might be the ideal thing for you. And I just also want to mention that the self-management chronic condition and the self-management chronic pain course is being offered through Alberta Health Services via Zoom. It's interactive and it's free. So you might be interested in looking into that. So we're just going to give a little break here and put some of this to use. So if you want to join me, go ahead. We're going to be very quick with it though. These are meditative exercises with affirmations, and it's an imperative to have exercise at any level or ability. So when you utilize the exercise with these affirmations, you're using two strategies right there from your toolbox. And many years ago, my mom gave me a VHS tape, so you know how old it is, and I believe it was called the 4-minute workout. I've adapted it to suit me. I do this every morning when I get out of bed before I do anything else. And you can do this sitting or standing. You can modify it for your own needs. And the goal is to work up to 10 repetitions of each. But considering the time, I'm only going to do probably one. And so join me if you can. I'm just going to tilt this down a little bit, so hopefully you can see me. Nah, that's not working too well, is it? This is what happens when you, okay. So the first one is pretty simple. It's just, and you go as far as you can go, but this is the day to nurture myself. This is the day to nurture myself. And I work up to 10 of those. The next one, again, however your balance is, whether you take your leg up or not, or use it to balance, but it's, I am loved and I love others. I am loved and I love others. The next one is I give and I receive. I give and I receive. I am humble. I give thanks. I am humble and I give thanks. And the last one is I'm opening my mind to receive. I'm opening my heart to receive. If you get up to all 10, thanks for joining me, everybody. But it literally, even doing 10 of each, it literally is about 4 minutes. And it just gets you started for the day. It gets the stiffness going, the stimulation, the oxygen, it's providing those nutrients to the nerves.
Okay, so self-monitoring. Self-monitoring is a strategy to increase your awareness of pain levels, triggers, patterns, and factors that may contribute to either increase or decrease the pain, function, and emotional well-being. So if you've newly been diagnosed with neuropathy, or it's just starting to increase and it's really starting to bother you, you've come to the conclusion that it's time to take care into your own hands, this self-monitoring is the place to start. So what it starts with is identifying where you want to focus your self-management, right? So once you've figured out where to start, then you can start to track those symptoms, to find the patterns, to find the triggers. And with that information, you can choose which tools you want to use or you want to try to add into your toolbox. And the really good thing about it is once you start to track that kind of stuff, you have really valuable information that you can pass on to your doctor and use it as a discussion piece. So, you know, when you go to the doctors and you get a sheet, and it's usually a scale of 1 to 10 and you're checking stuff off, or there's the picture of the body and you're highlighting stuff. This is all the kinds of things that we're talking about when we're talking about self-monitoring tools. You can print off multiple copies, like if you want to do it for a week or for a month or whatever, and it makes things really easy to track. Journaling, so there's all kinds, right? There's the scales, there's the charts. The wheel of life is actually a little sample that we're going to do in the next slide. Journaling is another really good one. It's similar but different because it's a mechanism, obviously, to write stuff out. You describe your pain. You know, I was talking with a woman just the other day who I said, well, how do you describe your pain to the doctor? And she said, well, he doesn't understand. And she just couldn't tell me how she describes her pain. And so it's one of those things, that's really valuable tool for the doctor to know. Of course, you can't hand your doctor the journal, but you can pick out the pieces that would be relevant and have that good discussion with them. And one of the reasons that journaling really helps is it goes from your brain down through your arm and onto the paper, and something through that mechanism really either releases the pain or reinforces in the case of a habit. So you just really can't just do it in your head. It doesn't work nearly the same. And even typing it in onto the computer doesn't really work as well. So get yourself a journal and start writing, because it really is a beneficial tool. Now, the wheel of life. Okay, so this wheel of life, as you can see, has that scale of 1 to 10 that I had talked about. And what it does is it goes around and it separates, I think there's 8 chunks on here, major components in your life. And you can change these, you know, if you're retired, you maybe don't need to have career on here, you can change it to something else. And what you do is you go around and you put a dot on the scale of 1 to 10 for each of the things. And once you've got them, all the dots, you can kind of see what's going on, but really it isn't until you start to connect those dots. So if I connect all those dots, now I can see the wheel has some serious bumps. If I was to start rolling this wheel, I'm going to bump here and I'm going to bump here. So those places are probably, and this one's going to be the worst, where I want to focus, first of all, when I'm looking for tools. I hope that makes sense. And oh, by the way, this wheel of life, all you have to do is Google it and you'll find umpteen samples of it that you can print off. Relaxation, those are techniques to create the relaxation response in the body. So it can be a vicious cycle of pain and creating those muscle tensions, which just makes the pain worse. But there's all kinds of things like meditation, deep breathing, body scans, the affirmations like we did earlier. All of those kinds of things can really help release chemicals in the brain that release tension, they release stress, they release, they help with inflammation. And in the long term, they build resilience so that you overall can manage the pain better. And I really want to emphasize, breathing is one of the best ways to calm down that stress response that's caused by pain, right? The body, and the nice thing about breathing, of course, is that you can take it anywhere. And one of the tricks that we've picked up along the way is to link it to something. So Sylvia taught me this one. When she's sitting at a light, and now when I'm sitting at a red light, we do some deep breathing exercise. You know, you're only there for a couple of minutes, but you can get a few breaths in that way. At the crosswalk, while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew, all of those kinds of, I call it filling in the bits, all those places where you're standing there doing nothing anyway, do some deep breathing. That's going to get oxygen down. I actually, this wasn't part of my presentation, but I bought one of these. It's one of those things you put on your finger, and I can do breathing just for a few minutes, and I can see my oxygen level go up, which I think is just awesome. And it's very little effort. Okay, meditation. Now, meditation is one of those things. When I first started, well, even before I knew I had neuropathy, I tried to meditate, and I was a real skeptic. There was no way this couldn't work. How could this possibly do anything? Well, I'll tell you what converted me. Debbie Patterson, who is a pain specialist, chronic pain specialist, came to our group and told us about a researcher here in Canada, Dr. Melzak, I believe, who proved all the way back in 1996 that the pain that you're feeling at the site is not felt at the site. It's actually felt in the brain. What happens is the nerves send the signals up to the brain, and it's the brain that tells you there's pain here, and by the way, this is what it feels like. So pain really is in the brain. The brain decides what that feels like based on 3 things. physically what's going on. So did I just stub my toe? Your attitude and how you're feeling that day, how much sleep you've had, what your emotions, what are your beliefs, all kinds of things like that. And then the response from other people around you is the third thing. So you're getting input from everybody, what they say, what they do. And this all builds what psychologists call the biopsychosocial model. And basically it's all connected, and it all has to do with how you feel that pain. So one thing I wanted to mention too, a normal brain, this is a fascinating statistic. A normal brain without pain chronic pain, dedicates about 5% of its energy to managing pain or dealing with pain when it has it. But a person who has chronic pain, like somebody with neuropathy, they're using 25% of their brain's energy to deal with that pain every single day. So that kind of thing deals with results in what they call cognitive fog, or sometimes called brain fog. That pain is basically hijacking your higher processing. You get more easily emotional, you're easily stressed, and all that pain is taken away from the emotional center. The really cool thing though is through meditation, you can learn to turn down that volume on the pain. And by meditation, I don't necessarily mean sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed and listening to gongs. There's all kinds of things that are meditative. So there's visualization, there's Qigong, which is kind of like Tai Chi. There's Tai Chi, there's prayer, and lots of other practices. We have a good article on that, number 63. And if you are not convinced yet that meditation is something really worth trying, I want to show you this picture. This is from a BBC. It's like a 2-minute news article, but I've seen many things like this. This first one is an MRI of a person who's in chronic pain, who has chronic pain, and probably I think is having a flare. And so you can see all these circles is what they're saying is the brain trying to respond to the pain. I didn't realize that was in the way. After just 8 weeks of learning to meditate, training, the highlighted response areas is created, and this is it. So it went from this to this, whoopsie, in 8 weeks. I can go back, but you get the idea, right? It's very significant how much meditation can really help. I started with 8 minutes a day, and it took me a while to do that, but now I'm at half an hour a day, and I really see a huge difference. Okay.
Communication, and we're a little short on time. This used to be an hour-and-a-half presentation, so we've been trying to whittle it down here.
We have some flexibility, Sylvia, so don't worry.
Good.
Well, as Linda was saying earlier about knowledge is great to have, but until you action it, that's where you get your power. So you have a responsibility when you have chronic pain of any sort, and it's up to you to take action. And that will give you the power to engage in open communication with your personal health care providers and to participate in your own care and decision-making. It's important to be your own advocate within the healthcare system. And you also need communication skills with family, with friends, and with coworkers. It's important that you're able to inform others about your condition, not just talk about how often and how it affects you. People will ask, but they really are being polite. So asking for help is another thing that is very difficult to do, and it's a communication skill that is really helpful if you learn to use it. People want to help you, and yet they often don't know how and they don't know when. You can't see neuropathy, you can't see the unpredictable nature of it. So it's up to you to be able to communicate what your needs are at that time. The basic advice is use I statements, how I feel, rather than the you statements that put a little bit of blame, has that tendency to come across that way. Speak clearly and to listen with intent from others. We talk about pacing, and I don't know why I get this slide because I'm the worst pacer there is, but I have taken a few of these ideas. So pacing is about planning ahead. That if you want to do an activity and it's going to flare you up, then just plan ahead. Plan to follow it up with a day or two of rest with no commitments, that type of thing. Exercise is very important, no matter what your ability level is. There's exercises for everyone. The goal is typically for 30 minutes a day, but maybe you need to start 5 minutes at a time, 3 times a day. And then work up to maybe 15 minutes twice a day until you're comfortable putting in your 30 minutes all at once. That's all about pacing. Linda's already mentioned about filling in time when you're standing in line at the grocery store. Take a few deep breaths, rotate your ankles, do your toe scrunches, that type of thing. Pacing is also about setting priorities, letting other things go, and or delegating them. I just remember when I had to get a housekeeper, and I found that as a big loss. I just couldn't believe that life got that bad that I couldn't even tidy up after myself. But then I now see it as a gift because it's part of my pacing plan. If I'm going to get hurt and have a flare up, it's going to be doing something I enjoy. And it's not going to be doing housework. So that's become part of my pacing plan. It's about working smarter and not harder. Part of that working smarter and not harder is about self-talk. What are the things that we're telling ourselves? I went to a talk by Dr. Christina Bjorndal. She's a naturopathic physician from Edmonton. And she writes, thoughts create neuropeptides, which bind to receptors in our brain and body, and it influences our physiology. It's that whole mind-body connection. The thalamus in the brain perceives thoughts as being real stress, and it prepares the body to flee. This increases our blood pressure, it increases our breathing, it increases our heart rate, just from a thought. So when you have negative thoughts, that actually changes the hormones, the norepinephrine and the cortisol levels. That upset in the hormonal balance depletes chemicals that are required for happiness, and it damages the immune system. It produces more white matter in the brain. It disrupts the neural connections affecting mood, increasing your anxiety, depression, and ultimately your pain. Those are just thoughts. So we need to change those negative thoughts to positive ones. Here's an example. I just can't do it anymore. Change it. If I do a little at a time, then I can work my way through getting it done. I have a challenge for you. Over the next week, note how often you have a negative thought. You'll likely notice it quite easily in other people first. But when you do recognize it in yourself and you have that thought immediately, it's important to do it immediately to change that thought to a positive one. Even if it is something as simple as, I just can't do it anymore, and change it to, I can still do this. You can work out how later. And ideally, writing it out, like it is on the slide like that, creates that body-brain connection as well, and it makes a stronger connection. Really advise, try to lose the word can't completely from your vocabulary. You may think you can't do things anymore, and you've told yourself that for a long time, but just maybe you have to modify it. Maybe you have to have different aids or figure out a different way of doing it. And if it's something that you truly physically can no longer do, then find another activity that can substitute for that one, that can replace it. When I had my first injury, I used to downhill ski a lot. I had my injury, and so couldn't downhill anymore, so I bought cross-country skis. When I had another accident, being rear-ended, I couldn't use my arms to do cross-country skiing, so I bought snowshoes. And I can still go outside and enjoy being outdoors. It's the thought that counts. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, because they become character. And watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. The power of thoughts.
Power of thought. Okay, so I know we've said it many times, but managing that underlying condition, whatever it is always top. So all of those lifestyle kind of things that are important for normal people who don't have neuropathy or don't have chronic pain are even more important for people who do have them, because generally there is no cure, but you can help yourself. You can relieve symptoms with other things on top of your meds, by eating healthy, by not doing things that are bad for you, like quitting smoking, reducing alcohol, reducing the caffeine, right? And exercise is huge, huge, huge. Simple, silly little things, like if you like to cross your legs. Well, if you think about crossing your legs, even if it's just down at the ankles, you're putting pressure on a nerve. So if you cross your legs 5 minutes a day for a year, and you do that for 5 years, that's almost 10,000 minutes of compressing on those nerves. So those little things, just changing those, and I just uncross my legs, and uncrossing little things can make a big difference. Okay, exercise is the next really big thing I want to talk about, because not only does exercise provide the stimulation, which gives the nerves the oxygen and the nutrition, but it does a bunch of other things too that are really good for the whole picture, right? It helps to build strength, which will help with falls. It'll reduce stress. We all know that exercise reduces stress, which helps all of your body systems. It supports your mental health always. And a little tip I've picked up along the way is if you can do your cardio, which can be as simple as a walk, a cardio in the morning, it actually leads to better sleep and deeper sleep in the evening. So we've only touched on some of the stuff that can be done. There's just way too many to go through. Oh, shoot, didn't mean to do that. But anyway, as you recall, we had the medical approaches, which could be 30 to 40%. That's medications, topicals, other things that your doctors can do. And then the integrative approaches, which is the other side of this piece. So meditation, maybe it's 20% pain reduction that you can get from that. Maybe a chiropractor is another 20%. Nutrition could possibly help as well. And then there's 100 other things on our list. And maybe you're just left with a small amount of pain. It might be the 15% or it might be the 20%. But if you can go from 100% of your pain down to 20%, I'm thinking that would be a really big win for a lot of people. And I just want to say this is only an example. I just pulled these numbers out of my head. So it's not necessarily representative. But I thought it was a good picture of the two sides of the coin, so to speak.
I just want to add to that too, is one of the things that we've talked about a lot, Linda and I, with the work that we do and our conditions, is that you can function with pain. It's just learning how to do that. And that's what our group is all about. We're an educational support group. So that's where we come to our last couple slides, are connecting with community resources. We really encourage you to go to our website. You can see we're still building it. So I think we're at 69 or 70 with our 100+ things to do. But those are all strategies that you can read through and learn about and put into action. The Living Well program, I've already mentioned that. It is offered now online via Zoom. It's interactive and it's free. The Muscular Dystrophy Association, for what if, you know, and there's others, like if you have CIDP, they will have other sites too for specific types of neuropathy. And I put this one in because that's what I live with. It's a reflex sympathetic dystrophy or complex regional pain syndrome. There's a support group here in town. And the Chronic Pain Support and Connections is a new nonprofit group that offers free online counseling for people that live with chronic pain. So check these things out. And that's just the beginning. We hope that this has been of interest to you. We hope that you were able to pull something new out of this, and we hope that you will put this knowledge into action. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Sylvia. That's and Linda. That's great information, and I, for one, I think you've convinced me on the benefits of the meditation. That's for sure. A little hard to dispute. A little hard to dispute that. If you'd like to end your screen share, we'll open it up here to some Q&A. And
I do see that. And so, oh shoot, I'm just going to scoot ahead here. This CalgaryNeuropathy.com. The numbers on the slide are, we have a set of blog posts in there called 100 Things for Neuropathy. And the numbers on the slide coincide to our website. You go to the 100 Things for Neuropathy and you'll find a more in-depth article on that.
Sure, absolutely. And we'll make sure that we share that information. I'm not sure if you would like to share your PDF of your...
I will share the PDF of the slide. And I might actually share a couple of other little PDFs that we have as well.
Sure, sounds good. I know that we have had someone asking through the program here. So again, we will be putting the presentation up on our Kirby Center YouTube channel where people can find the information again, but we will send out to the attendees the documents that you provide us so that they can easily access the information.
Awesome.
And if you'd like to close out your screen share, I have, I'll check with our Q&A here. I have had a couple of people popping in here saying, thank you very much. Very good information, very helpful. Rose would like to know, thank you, ladies. What do the numbers mean on the slides?
That's what Linda was just explaining. They correlate to our website. Under 100 plus things you can do for neuropathy, okay. Those numbers will correlate where you'll find that in that list of that we have that we're working on.
So if you're looking for something and you've got the number 63, then you know to go to that particular item.
And get more information.
Yeah.
One of the things that, like, I've made myself some notes as I've gone along here as well. I was interested in the capsaicin. Is that because of the heat elements of the?
Yeah.
And so one of the big things I think is because, as you've alluded to, there are varying types of neuropathy. When does one know when one should go to a doctor? You know, what are how bad, you know, what kind of symptoms, how bad would the symptoms need to be before you start to think, well, maybe I should see a doctor? And what happens? How does this progress? And what happens if you don't have it looked after? Can it worsen?
I'm gonna let you take this, Sylvia.
Yeah, a lot of questions there. So basically, we tend to get a lot of phone calls. So if you have questions like that, give us a call and we can talk about your individual situation. But typically, if you feel like you need to reach out and say something to somebody, then reach out and say it to your doctor. Hey, this is new. I've never had this before. It's been going on for, you know, probably a few weeks. I tripped the other day over my own foot, you know, things like that. You know, you want to bring it up and mention it. And on that slide of diagnostics, there's a whole bunch of things, but they're really to rule out and try to, the interview is the most important part of it, is getting the information, your history, your family history. That's how Linda found out about hers, is because of her dad was tripping and had a fall and saw the doctor, and that's how he was diagnosed. And because it's hereditary, Linda went, oh my gosh, I've been having those too. So it's important to, you'll know because it's painful, it's annoying, even if it's not painful. Even if
And
it's
keeping
just
you
that
up at
numbness
night.
and you're dropping things and, you know, you're breaking glasses, you know, 1 or 2 a week. And, you know, that's when you mention these things to your doctor.
Mm-hmm. I know when you, there was another point that I had made note here as well was, Sylvia, you've referred to having several accidents. And Linda, you know, we've referred to being hereditary. Can it be caused by both factors then? I think, you know, one of the questions that I have in my mind is the fact that my father had peripheral neuropathy in his feet, so it made it extremely difficult for him walking. People would think that, you know, he was a little bit inebriated because, you know, he just kind of bouncing around and had lost all feeling in his feet. So he had a needle in his foot, didn't realize it, was infected and caused serious problem. You know, so I'm finding that I'm experiencing some things, but I've also broken both feet at various times. So is it hereditary or is it something that's kind of come as a result of injury? Or?
Interesting question. I broke both feet. Actually, it's 2 years ago now. I broke one on Easter Sunday, and then the next one I broke it on Mother's Day. Just by tripping over air. But anyway, so in the case of my dad, for example, so he had this underlying condition that's the hereditary condition. And then he got cancer. And if you remember from one of the very first slides, chemotherapy can cause neuropathy as well. So you put that on top. And then my dad also took statins for years, which they'll give you after a heart surgery or something. So now he's got a triple whammy, which just made his neuropathy worse and worse. My dad is still alive, but he can hardly walk anymore. So that's one of the reasons why all of that other stuff about good nutrition and exercise and taking care of yourself is so important, because you don't want, if you have diabetes, you don't want to get another condition on top of that, because it's just going to make everything a whole lot worse.
I think that goes back to the question I asked previously, is that I think it is important that once you start to question it, then it's time to see a physician and investigate.
Yes.
It's a very long process. People can wait months and months and months for their referral to the neurologist, and they come out going, I waited all that time, because there isn't a silver bullet. There just isn't.
Yeah.
So it's time consuming to do tests and get results back. And then, okay, that, you know, it may have been negative, or, you know, that showed something, and well, let's do something else. Let's rule out this, let's rule out that. So it's a slow process. And like I mentioned earlier, 30% of people with neuropathy will never know the cause.
Really?
They'll never actually know the cause. So that's why, and some of them, you know, the treatment is basically the same for everybody. There's some things like if you have CIDP, it's a chronic, well, I won't get into all that. Anyways, it's dealt with an IVIG, it's called infusion. But that's the only type of neuropathy that uses the IVIG infusion. Basically, what we're talking about are all the self-management strategies that everybody can be using for good health.
And some of it's common sense that benefits your health overall, period. I've got a question here. I also wanted to, before I go to Marilyn, Sergio, you raised your hand earlier. Unfortunately, I can't really answer while we're in the midst of the presentation. So I didn't respond to that. But Sergio, if you have a question, perhaps by all means pop it into chat here. Marilyn would like to know, what specialist should you see if your GP is uninterested in trying? I had a brain scan, which was negative, but there's not a plan to investigate further. What can she do?
You would need a whole lot more information to get a background history of her personally, of her family. When they're doing a brain scan, that's looking at more of the central nervous system, ruling out something like, say, MS. You would look, but that's using the brain and the spinal cord. If the symptoms are peripheral, then you would want to have more testing done on the periphery, not the brain itself. That's the only thing I could think of, is just to ask for that referral.
And actually, I had typed it in, but then I think Colleen must have said that we answered it manually, but anyway, so, you know, a referral to a chronic pain specialist or a physiatrist, it depends on what you're looking for. Again, what symptoms are you trying to?
Oh, sorry, did I close out the question and you were answering it? I apologize.
That's okay.
Again, I think that if anyone has a question, or if, you know, after the presentation, to feel free to reach out. And
Yes.
we've had some great feedback here. Rose, that we referred to earlier, that is visiting us from the UK. So she wanted to let you know that she's had a wonderful evening listening to your experiences and helpful points. So that's great. Thank you very much, Rose, for joining us. And Nicole is responding. Her neuropathy is a result of chemo, as you mentioned.
So when I read that one, I'm just going to interrupt, sorry, but when it things like that, mine is a result of chemo. That's what we have our organization for, is that we can meet and ask other people, what did you do for yours? Mine is from chemo. And, you know, somebody told me one time that they like to use the pressure stockings, and that helps at night. Other people say, no, I need the loose, very loose socks. But you get a lot of support and information learn from other people, as well as our guest speakers that we have once a month.
Yeah, that was a question that I had made note here as well, was your opinion on the benefit of compression stockings, and I think again it's kind of individual, you know, depends on. Val has said, thank you for your excellent presentation. She came late due to another engagement. Did you include the use of hypnosis? I've discovered that even visualizing contents of my stomach as green, plant-based, I can reduce acidity, indigestion, discomfort in my stomach.
Linda did bring up visualization under one of the integrative approaches. The concept of hypnosis is also included in that whole area. Absolutely.
If
I use a lot of visualization myself.
If anyone is interested, Netflix right now has a guide to meditation. It's a series, a season, and one of the ones is on visualization as well.
Really? Oh, that'd be good to check out then. So check out that link.
Documentary one of my doctors recommended, and it's called HEAL, HEAL. And
is that also on Netflix?
It is right now, but it's also on what is the I stuff?
Prime or
no, the iTV.
I don't know.
Apple TV?
Apple.
TV.
Okay. I know there's so many different channels, and how to access them out there is like, you have a smart TV, but boy, I still need a Roku, and I still need to. We're all learning new technology in leaps and bounds.
I heard that Apple TV also has a series on right now about meditation by Calm. The one on the one on Netflix is with Headspace. The one on Apple TV is from Calm, and it probably covers a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, that I had investigated Calm there for sleep, and it someone just to listen to someone telling you a story, and the music and things like that. I think that it's a great asset as well. I have another question here. I think it was the same question Val asked on the chat as well. And so Val, I'm sorry that you had to come in a little bit late, but as I said, we will share all of the information and the video once we have it up on YouTube for you, so that you can catch the beginning of it. I don't know, does anyone else have anything further that they might like to ask of the ladies before we kind of wind things down here today? I know we've gone on a little bit long, but I think it's great information, well worth having the chat. So
I do see my response to Marilyn actually did make it, but you have to go over to the answered tab for the questions.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just so people know.
Okay. And our time is up. Not not to worry. I know my phone's been going like crazy here today. I think a few of our viewers had a little bit of trouble for some reason trying to get on, I think, today, because my phone's been going like crazy here and it's been on vibrate. So throughout your presentation, you probably thought I had bees in my office or something. Anyways, thank you all very much. I'm just going to share a quick screen here as well. Now, can you all see this screen today?
Yes.
Yep.
There, can you see full screen?
Mm-hmm.
Had challenges yesterday. For some reason, the PowerPoint just would not. I could see it. I'm talking away and having a lovely time, and then discovered that nobody else could see it for some strange reason. But if it's working here now, mainly just wanted to be able to say thank you once again to our 2021 Health and Wellness presentation sponsor, Service Credit Union. They've been longtime supporters of Kirby Center. And to Linda and Sylvia, the Calgary Neuropathy Association, for a great presentation today. That was very beneficial. I appreciate all of that information. And I'm sorry that you've had to shorten that up a little bit today, but we'd love to have you back another time as well. I think it's great information that was shared for the benefit of our viewers today, as well as just a little bit of catch up about Kirby. We are still essentially closed to the public, but are still operating our critical programs and services as usual. And we have numbers here, or I invite you to go to our website, excuse me, www.kirbycenter.com, so that you can get up-to-date information on all of our programs and contacts as to how to go about getting support. As it is a time to renew the 2021 memberships, and the membership desk would be available to answer your messages in order to help you to renew. Pardon me. And so I would also like to invite you to join us for our launch of the Service Credit Union support and their presentation on special financial considerations for seniors next Thursday, January 14th. And then following that, we have representatives from the Canada Revenue Agency and Service Canada to help to provide information about benefits and programs and any new COVID recovery benefits that are available for seniors. It's particularly important time coming into tax time for seniors to be able to have their taxes well in order. And again, just thank you to everyone who's joined us today, and we really appreciate your support. Both the guests that have joined us ongoing, and for the brand new guests who've joined us. And again, thank you to Rose from the UK and all others who've come from across Canada, the States, and across the globe. So unless it looks like we might have another question. Oh, Marilyn is, thank you very much. And lots of great accolades here coming in, ladies. And so we do appreciate once again your help and support. And I would think that we can call this a wrap this afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you all again next time.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you, Colleen.
Bye-bye.